ladies and gentlemen, to what is our first podcast here at Esoterica. So, I'm joined here by my very good friend Anthony.
Hi everyone.
That's nice. See, said hello. And our producer Caroline, who's hiding in the background, shaking her head, and making sure that we stay on topic. So, this is obviously our first podcast, and it's something that we've been wanting to do for quite a while. So both of us were sort of sitting there and thinking about doing a podcast, the sort of podcast that we would like to listen to. And so we've decided to sit down and make the absolute opposite of that. Naturally,
yeah.
That's right. Where essentially we just take a different topic every week and talk about stuff that interests us. Or obviously things that interest you, and we'll be letting you know where you can get a hold of us at the end of the podcast. So, who are we and why should you listen to us? Well, essentially, we are absolutely no one. We're not famous in any way, shape, or form.
It's very reassuring, isn't it?
That's
it's
right.
Very reassuring.
Right. Which is exactly why you should be listening to us for up to date facts, because everything, of course, is fact checked on this podcast.
Cross-reference.
Looked into in absolute depth. This is totally not
the Wikipedia equivalent of podcasts.
This is totally not us just making it up as we go along. And hopefully you'll decide to join us every week here as we talk through the random things that pop into our heads.
I just want to point this out before we go any further. Fantastic intro, by the way, James.
Thank you.
Just for context, we've spent the last 20 minutes trying to do an intro.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly difficult, I think, as most people would know. Trying to start anything is always difficult. Because, of course, Esoterica, how on earth do you sort of pigeonhole that into anywhere?
Exactly. And the problem that we have is really we're doing a podcast on nothing.
There's nothing specific.
No concrete theme. So it's not like we're talking about wrestling. It's not like we're talking about gaming. Although they may be topics that we discuss as we go through. So, I mean, really, we're trying to invite you into an afternoon conversation with the two of us. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, where are we from? Which is probably ties in quite nicely to what we're going to talk about a little bit further in this podcast. So we're both from Hawke's Bay, here in New Zealand. For those of you that are not from New Zealand, Hawke's Bay is a lovely little place on the east coast of the North Island of New Zealand. Lots of beaches, lots of cool stuff like that. So we will endeavour to be recording these podcasts every week, posting them up every week. So, what are we going to talk about this week, Anthony?
What are we going to talk about? So, recently it's come up. It's such an ominous thing to say. So recently it's come up.
And this is why Hawke's Bay is important. Because otherwise it's like, it's not like...
Yeah. There's a reason why we've talked about where we're from, or why James mentioned that. It's because something that caught our eye in the last, I think it was the last 2 weeks. Is that a video game. So this is a video game series called Hitman. Many of you probably have heard of this. It dates back for quite a while. I believe the first Hitman game was on the PlayStation 2. So we're going back about 15 years. And it turns out the latest Hitman game actually begins in Hawke's Bay. It begins in... Which is quite shocking for many people. It's taken New Zealand by storm.
It's the thing.
Stuff NZ.
It's the thing we never knew we always wanted. And now that it's happened, everybody is understandably excited.
I think excited. I think there's a bit of trepidation there. I think there's a bit of confusion mixed in there as well. Like why sort of this is a game. This is a game that's sole premise is to assassinate people. a hitman. So this is the guy. There was actually a film about it. You may have seen advertising about it recently. There was a film based on the game. I haven't seen it, so I can't give any context to how good it is. Being a video game adaptation, probably not very good.
Is this like didn't they do a film years and years ago?
Yes,
like there was one
this was
years ago that everyone was like, I hate it because it doesn't like follow the games, even though the games
don't.
And I'm going to get crucified here, but the games don't have like that much of a plot. It's kind of a dude that runs around and assassinates people for some shady organization or agency or whatever, and runs around. Like, I didn't actually mind that film. I remember seeing it. I didn't mind the film because I quite liked the action sequences and stuff. I thought were pretty cool, and all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't sort of I didn't sort of sit there and go, Hitman. That's really the game that requires a full narrative like telling.
Absolutely, yeah. It seems like a very strange choice, but I think back then, I think the sort of the target market was really ripe. I think when they were making films at the time, it was quite angsty, it was quite edgy, and I think they were sort of starting to experiment with the more mature themed games being taken to the big screen. But you're right, it doesn't strike me as an appropriate sort of game to translate to the big screen.
So are you saying there's a new film?
So
because there's
no
a game, but you're saying there's a new film.
I think the film. I think I'm getting sort of. It's just occurred to me the film's quite old now. I mean, now that you bring it up, it's actually very old. I mean, I was in high school at the time, so it's at least 10 years old.
Yeah.
The film. So the new game, like many games, I mean, there's quite a few Hitman games as far as I know. The new one's called Hitman 2.
Which of course makes complete sense.
Absolutely,
it's like the sixth in the series. It's now Hitman 2.
Absolutely, yes. It's this craze of
two man,
and electric boogaloo.
This time it's personal. Yeah.
But it's this new. I think with the new consoles and things, it's an attempt to rebrand old games. It's an attempt to rebrand, and I think it's not very sexy to release a game saying Hitman 6 or Hitman 10, or I think it's it's a little bit like what they've done with, say, God of War, where that's now just called God of War, even though it's the fourth in the franchise.
But you can kind of understand the God of War thing, because the God of War thing is like I kind of understand the rebranding for that because it's a completely different direction for the game. So unlike the original God of Wars, 1, 2, 3, all that sort of stuff, where they were kind of that real hack and slash sort of, I want to kind of say platformer because they're sort of a bit of a platformer. That sort of thing, like this is a completely different shift into that kind of open world RPG almost.
Absolutely.
Essentially. Completely change, even though it's the same character and they do reference stuff that's happened in the first three games, so it's sort of a continuation of the narrative story. It's a complete shift away in tone from the original games, but from what I've sort of seen from these games, it doesn't strike me that there's a shift in tone. Like it's you're doing the same sort of thing with the same character. It doesn't strike me as like okay, now we're making a completely different type of Hitman game that we haven't seen before. It's completely different to the stuff that was on like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. It's still very formulaic. Like it's still very much I couldn't stop laughing at the press release, because every press release I've seen for this game, it starts with, this is how it starts. It starts, visit 9 exotic locations. It's like, is this a travel catalogue, or is it's this weird sort of
but it's also like
visit the beaches of Hawke's Bay and murder someone.
But nobody cares. Like I don't think nobody like plays these games and goes, you know what, I really should go to Saint-Tropez because it's featured in the game, or like
absolutely.
Or oh wow, Miami looks nice as I'm garroting this guy in the back of it. Nobody thinks that. I mean, everybody just kind of looks at the level design and stuff and goes, oh wow, that's cool, I can poison drinks in a globe, or I can drop a chandelier on someone, that's kind of like what people look at. Like it's not like it's very niche, doesn't it? It's a dinner party, so I'm going to drop but they were like that. It was drop a chandelier. Pick somebody's pocket to get like a key card after you've beaten them on the head. You have that whole. Actually, funny enough, speaking of drinks, Angeli's made me a drink And his description of this beverage was that it was confronting. And I think that's probably the most accurate description of a beverage that I've ever had. So I'm attempting to make my way through this confronting beverage as we talk about this. Maybe you poisoned it. Maybe that's what it is. You poisoned it as we went through.
It's made with love. It's if you're curious, it's vodka and tonic water with a squeeze of lemon. There's also ice in there.
Squeeze
as well.
of lemon.
Lovingly squeezed.
That really makes it. That's right. It's the squeeze.
It's the notes of lemon.
All I can do is taste notes of vodka. I think is what's in there. But anyway, coming back to the Hitman game thing, I mean, and to a certain extent, why change a formula that works? Because it is a formula that works for them and has worked for them for years and years and years and years. People enjoy, sort of. I mean, they're well renowned for the games of multiple ways that you can complete objectives. You can complete assassinations. They have the whole silent kill thing for you don't alert guards. You don't do all that sort of thing. Even if you have to kind of suspend your disbelief in a way for that. How to kind of Clark Kent. I put on some glasses so suddenly you can't recognise that I'm a bald dude with a barcode in the back of my head. Yeah. Like I'm completely invisible.
Yeah. I think the new trailer mentions that. It sort of says something along the lines of I have a barcode on the back of my head, but not many people notice. And it actually shows him walking through a crowded street, and I think I'm not sure.
Sorry, there was confronting. Yes, carry on. Yeah.
The notes.
the notes. They're all accidentals, I think. Woo! Anyway, yes.
B flat. I think it's through the streets of Manila or something like that, and it's but no one notices the barcode on the back of my head. And it's always been a big branding thing for Hitman games, and I think the Hitman games always sort of operated sort of on that same tier as quite popular games at the time, like the Metal Gear Solid games and the Siphon Filter games, and those sort of stealth-based games that I think it did very well.
There's a game that needs to come back, Siphon Filter. I remember being obsessed with Siphon Filter whenever I was a kid, and it's probably one of those games that you go back and play now and it's rubbish. But I just remember the Siphon Filter games being really cool, and I remember them having they were kind of like Metal Gear Solid. Again, people are going to crucify me for that. Kind of like Metal Gear Solid, but with a story you could understand.
What do you mean?
There was nobody shooting lightning out their butt or
what do you mean? Metal Gear Solid storylines have never been convoluted.
No, absolutely. You know who the protagonist is. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
I still think to this day we don't know who the Metal Gear Solid games. I remember, I'll never forget when I would have been about 10 or something, and one of the PlayStation magazines had a tree where they tried to sort of describe and piece together everything in the Metal Gear Solid series and how they all linked together and how they all operated, and it was just this web of confusion. And I remember the bios of some of those characters and thinking, wow, okay, that end up more confused.
This is the problem. Anytime you need a tree to try and explain what how your characters fit into the overall plot, there's something bizarre going on. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ragging on Metal Gear Solid games, but you're
gonna have the Metal Gear Solid.
That's right.
Elite
triggered. That's going to be receiving hate mail, and they'll send Raiden to kill me.
Well, no, even fans would agree that would be disappointing. Playing for all of Metal Gear Solid 2 only to
after the opening scene or whatever. But Siphon Filter, that needs to come out. I remember that's a game that could do with a movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that series was really good. But the Hitman games, I didn't play a lot of Hitman. I think I played Hitman Blood Money. I think was the one I played. Was that the one that you you could kill the dudes by shooting out the jacuzzi from the glass-bottom jacuzzi and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I think Blood Money I played a lot, and I would admit that I kind of got caught up in that whole silent assassin thing and trying to get through it, and work out the ways of doing it without killing any innocent bystanders and stuff like that. So good games, but again, they follow a pretty similar story. Press F to pay respects.
Which is why it's confusing that they, everything we've talked about, Hitman, in Russia and the southern the Alps or something.
Well, you can kind of understand it because you're there to assassinate a Russian mafia boss, or you're there to
absolutely
kill a Miami drug cartel cocaine kingpin. Yeah.
So, and that's sort of where it leads us to kind of question Hawke's Bay. So the new one starts. It actually begins in Hawke's Bay, I believe, and on specifically the beaches of Hawke's Bay. Now, just James and I talked about this a while back, briefly, and I started reading the article, and it's actually I'm actually going to do it now because it's actually quite.
Because this is nothing if not fact based.
Absolutely.
That's one thing we can say about this podcast is it will not be opinions at all. It's all complete fact. We're not just making it up as we go along.
Absolutely. Which is why it's. Which would be true if I wasn't reading stuff. No, I probably shouldn't.
So who are we offended so far?
Yeah.
Solid fans, stuff.co.nz.
So
the makers of vodka.
I will see. It's actually funny. It's really funny when you see because I've just googled Hitman 2 Hawke's Bay, and it's funny looking at the different headlines, different news, places will give them, and we've got for stuff. Hitman 2 gives video game assassins the opportunity to kill in Hawke's Bay. Oh, very confronting. Very, very dramatic. The next one is by News Hub. It's Hitman 2 features murder on a Hawke's Bay beach. It's very... Come on, guys. I'm calling you out. Episode 1, Esoterica. I'm calling you out.
Yeah. We're starting beef already.
Actually, do we want to do a poll? Can we do a poll of what do you think's the most...
Surprise poll!
Surprise poll. Producer Caroline is shaking her head. We're barely, 20 minutes in. Can we vote for the most controversial headline? What's another one? We've got that's really it.
We'll post them up. We'll post them up on the Twitter, and you can.
I don't know if we'll actually do a poll. I'm semi kidding, but maybe not. We'll see. But this is how the article starts. Now, I think they've actually, unfortunately... Oh, no, they have. Here we go. So, this is how the stuff article... This is stuff.co.nz. It's a popular assassin-themed video game will feature Hawke's Bay as one of the handful of international locations where its main character can commit murder. It's so funny hearing a news source talk about, killing people in video games in 2018 as where its main character can commit murder. Do we want to do a list of video games where you can't commit? Yeah, it's such a bizarre way of talking about it.
No, but I suppose what's kind of what I find bizarre about that is that it's a positive spin on murdering people. Do you know what I mean? It's like normally whenever you hear about video games in the news, it's like video games teach you how to butcher and dismember small children. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, because it's here in New Zealand, all of a sudden it's like, no, this is a positive thing. Think about the amount of tourists murdering people on a Hawke's Bay beach will bring to Hawke's Bay.
Well, I believe it's actually been talked about in another article, and actually might be in this article further on in an update, that it's actually been talked about in the same way that the Lord of the Rings films brought tourism to New Zealand. Hitman 2 will bring some positive publicity in tourism, and I think I don't, and actually I can later on in the article it does say in quotes, your mission brings you to the moonlit beaches. It sounds like a romantic sort of intro, doesn't it? Your mission brings you to the moonlit beaches and roaring waves off the coast of Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. The studio said on its website. Enjoy a moonlit stroll and retire for the evening on the deck of a highly secured luxury beach house. So, my thinking is that this must be somewhere further up north in Hawke's Bay. It must be somewhere like...
Not Hawke's Bay. must be somewhere like Whangarei.
Yeah. or at a push, something like Waipariki or something further north. And we've actually analysed the screenshots. We have
very high tech
enhance. Yeah.
Zoom in 8,000 times.
We've spent an embarrassingly long amount of time looking at highly pixelated screenshots of the Hawke's Bay beach. The first thing you will notice is the sort of the tundra, the reeds and things, which is actually not an entirely common sight on most Hawke's Bay until you get further north.
Yeah.
There are exceptions. I think Waimarama and Waimarama and beaches like that do have. But the thing that we noticed was that there's a few landmarks in the background which don't quite add up.
See, Anthony's being very polite and saying this in a very circumspect way. What we're sort of saying is that looking at the screenshots, and again, look, we could be completely wrong, but living here in Hawke's Bay, looking at the screenshots, I cannot see anywhere in Hawke's Bay that this actually is, based on the screenshots. Like it's almost as if they've kind of gone, here's a beach. It's in Hawke's Bay. Like, you know, like it's been described, like Hawke's Bay has been described to somebody who's developing this game, who's never actually been there. And then gone, there's this kind of this hill thing over in the corner, and there's this... Like, you don't look at it and go, wow, that's recognisably Hawke's Bay. Like, you don't see, like, the landmarks like Tomato Peak or Cape Kidnappers or any of those kind of...
Or even Mahia.
Or Mahia. You know, those kind of, like, landmarks that if you were sort of in the bay, you know, the actual Hawke's Bay, you would expect to see. You would expect to see those landmarks if you were on the beach in the bay. This kind of just comes across as we've put a beach in and we're going to claim that it's in New Zealand. It's in the Hawke's Bay. Because my whole thing was, why would you put it in Hawke's Bay? And before I learned that it was in a beach house.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason that I could think of it, because, again, as I said earlier on, like, you go to Russia to assassinate a mafia boss. You go to, you know, Miami to assassinate a drug kingpin. You do that kind of shit. But why would you come to Hawke's Bay? Like
that's right.
What international dastardly criminal is hanging out on the beaches of Hawke's Bay? Population about 100,000 people across the entire area.
That's right. And this is something that because I sort of slowly leaked this information to James because I wanted to hear his opinion before he actually knew the full story. I wanted to. So James managed to come up with an idea better than what I think they.
That's right. And copyright me. Thank you.
And James made a sort of a good point. He sort of said, "Well, why on earth would they put it in Hawke's Bay?" And he said, "Well, the only thing I can think of is that the first mission takes place during Art Deco weekend in Napier, which, for those of you who don't know what Art Deco weekend is, it's a festival that happens every year in Hawke's Bay in Napier." And
so the very short history is Napier was destroyed in 1931 by a massive earthquake. They rebuilt sort of the entire town, and they rebuilt it in the Art Deco style. So sometime I believe it was in the 90s.
Yes,
they decided to start this annual festival where everybody sort of in town gets dressed up in all their Art Deco stuff. There's lots of events, cars, that sort of stuff. The whole sort of town shuts down, and it's a really awesome time here. We have cruise ships through. We have, you know, thousands of tourists come through every year for Art Deco. So in my mind, it was the only thing sort of massive international sort of knowledge that happens here in the Hawke's Bay that you'd be like, that's what they're coming to do. They're coming to, you know, kind of do like a, you know, you could dress up as like a dandy, or like, you know, running around, you know, with flappers and things like that, and you know, hiding in and amongst Art Deco themed stuff. So kind of like a 1920s, 30s, 40s kind of idea of theme, and I was sort of like, that would make sense to me. That would make sense. That's why you would come to Hawke's Bay as distinct from anywhere else, or that's why you would come to New Zealand. It just strikes me a little bit strange that it's kind of like, we're going to Hawke's Bay to put it on a beach. And again, being here from New Zealand, to a certain extent, again, I'm going to get crucified by Hawke's Bay people here. We're just starting beef with everyone. I wouldn't have said that if you were going to go and find a magic beach in New Zealand, you'd go to Hawke's Bay.
No.
Like, why wouldn't you go further north? Like, into Northland or somewhere like that, where there are some stunning beaches. Or, or that kind of stuff. Why Hawke's Bay? Like, there are some nice beaches here, don't get me wrong. But
and nothing
sort of few and far between.
Yeah.
Like, and nothing like you'd get up north or that sort of stuff. So, I'm still at a loss as to who we're assassinating in the Hawke's Bay. No, do you know what it's going to be? It's going to be the tutorial mission. And it's going to be like, and now, Agent 47, we need you to look to the right, look to the left, look up
and
down.
up and down so that it can check whether you have inverted controls.
Calibrate your stuff and that'll be it. Yeah. But I mean the screenshots look. I mean I'm assuming it's largely concept art at this point. But like
the kindest thing James had to say about it was that it was realistic in the way that the waves were breaking quite close to the shore.
That was about the only thing I could see that was sort of really Hawke's Bay.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks stunning in that same way that like Red Dead Redemption 2 looks stunning. That real kind of cinematic quality, that sort of stuff that people want from their games now. That those moments, when you're playing through and you're looking at the scenery around you, going, "Wow, this is amazing." The set pieces are amazing. The views are amazing. That sort of thing. It looks amazing, and I'm not taking that away. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like it's horrible. They should bin it all. It just surprises me that they're making such a big deal of this being specifically Hawke's Bay. That it's. But at the same time, doesn't really seem to have anything particularly to do with Hawke's Bay.
No, it looks like Foxton mixed in with the mountains of Queenstown.
It's almost as if like they were kind of like, oh, you know what we want to do? We want to whack something from New Zealand in there. So we're going to, because he's going to go to all these exotic locations around the map. New Zealand's exotic to lots of people because it's so far away. We're going to whack New Zealand in there. And, the moment they turned around and said, oh, well, we've got a level, where you're on a beach in New Zealand, somebody turned around to them and said, well, we're in New Zealand. And they kind of went, Hawke's Bay has beaches. Hawke's Bay, that's where we are. We're in Hawke's Bay. Like, rather than specifically going, okay, what is it about Hawke's Bay? Like, because wasn't there one, like, where you assassinated somebody? I thought it was going to be a bit like... in one of the Hitman games, was it at Carnival or something like that in Rio de Janeiro, and you had to assassinate people dressed as crows or something like that. Yeah. I thought it was kind of going to be like that. It was going to be the big festival thing. You'd have the
and it'd be hard to pick people out because of
the Navy band in the corner, people swing dancing, old style cars, like real 1920s, 30s, 40s kind of idea. And I thought, that would be really cool. Not just. It's a random batch.
Yeah, I mean, my gut feeling is that it'll be something along the lines of either Agent 47 or someone else has tried to escape and retire in Hawke's Bay. That's my gut feeling. So it's the introduction where it's Agent 47's retired, and he's gone all the way.
The only way you can justify this is literally they're going to be all stoked about it. That it's like it's in Hawke's Bay. This is amazing, and then really the narrative of the story is going to be. Agent 47 has come to the absolute asshole of the world so that he can get away from all the people that potentially want to kill him. So he went, where would literally nobody want to come? I'm going to go to the Hawke's Bay in New Zealand. And they're going to come looking for him and he has to murder somebody. And then everybody's going to feel real stink because it's going to be sitting there going, they literally were like, this is the last place on the planet that anybody would want to be. Agent 47 has run away here so that nobody will ever find him. He's on a remote beach in the Hawke's Bay.
And that's the tutorial mission. Then you're off to Florida.
Then you're off to actual places. To do actual missions.
Places where your assets for the level can't just be sort of copy and pasted of an image Google search of an accumulation of lots of different beaches in New Zealand. I should say that.
No.
But, like, I've seen different screenshots, and there's nowhere in Hawke's Bay. There goes our sponsorship. But who makes the Hitman games?
I don't know. It used to be EDOS, wasn't it? Isn't it?
It used to be, but I don't think...
EA now?
I don't think they operate now.
I imagine it's...
it's EA. I have no...
Here we are. This is, how well researched this podcast is. We don't even know who the game developer for the game.
I better shout them out. So it's Studio IO Interactive. So I think they.
Okay.
So I think they were. I believe they're the developer, and you have the producer. May have been for some of them. Maybe Eidos
It was. I think Eidos was. I think Eidos was the. I think Eidos was the original one, wasn't it? I think they did the. I can't remember. I just.
That's something we'll fact check.
No, we won't. You're such a liar. We won't fact check. Which is probably
we'll cross reference us.
It's probably a nice time to say at this point that everything on here is just absolute banter. Like it's our opinion. It's not. Don't take necessarily anything that we say as absolute fact, unless we say this is absolute fact, and then you should probably disbelieve it even more. Because that means it probably really
highly
isn't true.
Suspect anything that
of anything that we say
suspect.
or anything that we do here on the podcast.
Absolutely. Well, I think I don't. None of us. This doesn't need to be a labour of. We're not. If you're looking for in-depth analysis and professional expert advice on anything, this is not your one-stop solution. What
Anthony's trying to say is that we're way too lazy to do lots of research before we just start spouting off about what we think. So please don't come back at us and go, well, actually, this is not true. This is not true. This is not true. I mean, however, I think you'll find that everything we've said is completely true.
I don't think we've said anything that isn't true. I think. I think in conclusion, if we sort of want to, if we're sort of wrapping up our feelings about the Hitman game, I'm personally bizarrely excited about it, and I think it's sort of the small. I don't think people who don't live in New Zealand understand this. New Zealand has a very weird complex about. We pretend not to, but whenever we're sort of featured in anything international, we get quite excited.
Yeah.
Because I think it's sort of small country syndrome.
Well, it's one of those things that you always know when you're talking to a New Zealander, if you're around a map, because the first thing they'll say is, "Oh, New Zealand's not on your map." Like there was the whole thing with wasn't it like the UN
maps without
and
New Zealand,
everywhere else like that didn't have New Zealand on the map. Like and our Prime Minister. Shout out to Jacinda Ardern. Made a whole video with Rhys Darby and stuff like that about putting New Zealand on the map, right? Anthony's absolutely right. We do sort of have a bit of this complex about being left out of stuff.
We do,
or overlooked.
And it's why we get so upset when people confuse us for Australia or something.
And so we get bizarrely excited when things like this come up. Like, so this wouldn't be a news story anywhere else in the world. It wouldn't be a massive news story where everyone's like, "Yay, Miami's in the latest Hitman game." But for us here in Hawke's Bay, it's like, "Oh my god, I wonder if I can see my house in the game."
Absolutely,
because that's how games work.
How terrifying would that be? That would be so surreal if you saw your own house and then the mission icon appears on your house. You could create something really awfully
assassinate Anthony. That's going to be that's actually the mission. They haven't told you yet. They've just rendered it into the game.
Also, I just want to shout out Stephen Knightley. He's a board member of the New Zealand Game Developers Association. He said Kiwis were used to seeing New Zealand featured in international films and TV shows. He said, having them feature in a video game is probably just as influential. We know there are tourism benefits from our film industry and now also tourism benefits from our video game industry. So just remember that when you're assassinating someone on the moonlit beach of Hawke's Bay, that if that doesn't inspire you with feelings to come and visit Hawke's Bay, I don't know what will.
I'm just waiting for them to get it completely wrong, right? And end up ripping off the Australian advert. Like, you assassinate somebody on the moonlit beaches of New Zealand, and then you turn around and go, "Where the bloody hell are you, mate?"
Yes. Or and really something we can all expect from this, because we've been let down before. New Zealanders get their hopes up about stuff like this every time. Australian voice actors. Every video game. I think the only video game recently, and props to them, the Uncharted series, had an actual Kiwi as a voice actress, and she was actually from New Zealand. So shout out to Naughty Dog for that. No, but that's great, and it sort of helps. It's the tall poppy syndrome. So
it is, it absolutely is. Anyway, so that's our thoughts on Hitman 2, and Hitman 2 having a level set here in Hawke's Bay in New Zealand, even if it is only the loading screen. And so I think through today's podcast, we've managed to offend Metal Gear Solid fans. We've managed to offend stuff.co.nz. We've managed to offend EA and everybody else that we claimed was involved in this. Let us know in the comments how much you enjoy your vodka soda with a squeeze of lemon. Let me know if you found it as confronting as I did. Of course, only if you're, of legal age to participate in an adult beverage.
James has barely touched it. Just let me know.
I've done really well. I did think that I probably need to be at least slightly corpus mentis to get through this podcast. And I think if I drink too much, I think the word I'm looking for is die.
It's death is.
Yeah. It's confronting.
We may need to change our intro. Will James die?
Yes, that's right. That's right. You might only have Anthony next week with producer Caroline stepping in, because I will have died from. I'm sure it's the twist of lemon.
We'll do a Bruce Lee and have your corpse standing in.
Absolutely.
You could make a cameo in Hitman too.
I could. It could be the dead body on the beach. Died from confronting drinks. All right, so find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Come and follow us. Come and let us know what you're up to. Let us know if there's anything that you would like to discuss. Thank you for joining us here today. I've been James. He's been Anthony. We'll probably be the same people next week, I would imagine, unless something really strange happens. And shout out to producer Caroline for keeping us on track during this podcast. And you may hear more from her in the future as she gets angry with us. So
it's very ominous, wasn't it? It was very ominous. You can join us every Monday. James is laughing at the quaintness of that.
Yeah,
it's very quaint. But yes, you can join us every Monday through whatever your favourite podcast provider is, be that iTunes, Spotify, wherever. We'll be there.
Yeah, we're trying to get up on as many platforms as possible, and so that you can join us here, and we can continue to talk absolute rubbish.
Exactly. And on that note, have a very good week, and we'll join you next week.
Bye.